controlling the players, but the rain is still bouncing off them in a way that it tricks your brain and makes you think it's real water. This is a game I cannot say enough about. The company, That Game Company, is 2 or 3, I believe, alumni from the University of Southern California's, I call it their video game program. It's a program in their business department that brings together art and computer science and business to develop and market games. Those alumni have produced 3 games. The third one is coming out soon, but this one is called Flower. And the purpose of this game is you control the wind, and so you use a controller and you move it around, like it's for PlayStation, so you move the controller up and down, and you control the wind and try to disperse petals to make flowers grow throughout these virtual fields. And I bring it up because if you look at pictures of it, this one looks kind of realistic. It's all of this is fake. The grass is fake. None of this is photos. It's all fake. Grass, flowers, everything. But the whole game is just really neat because you're like, who wants to play a game about flowers? And then you start and you're like, I missed a flower, and you go back, and then you can make the wind go faster and slower. It's just a really neat experience as opposed to just a game. It has a point, which is you're trying to pollinate all these flowers, but you can really get lost in it, and it's very, very beautiful. Game that some of you may be more familiar with that has sold millions of copies here and abroad is Uncharted 2 from Sony Entertainment, developed by Naughty Dog, published by Sony. In this particular screenshot, what you have are 2 characters that you can see. The person inside the kitchen, who typically is controlled by artificial intelligence, meaning that it's a computer that's controlling that player, and you play as Nathan Drake, the character here on the outside. I only mention his name because this particular series of games has been licensed, I would bet by Sony, to be produced as a major motion picture, and it is very Indiana Jones-like. So I suspect not only will it come out, but it will be fairly popular as long as they can keep the people that usually make video game movies away from it. Because usually it's like, we have a good story, but we're going to cast really poor people and really bad actors and actresses, and we're going to not fund it properly. But in this game, both of these characters, this is what you would see as you're playing. So you're playing as Nathan Drake, and you have to decide if you want to peek around or if you want to shoot. It's not like this is a CGI movie and then you go into like bloop, 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 bloop. No, this is really it. He really moves, and in this particular one, you have to go throughout, is it Nepal? Tibet, I can't remember, to try to rescue an artifact. Absolutely amazing game, won 1 million awards, and it's just beautiful. The whole thing is beautiful. If you want to know what kinds of technologies are being used to develop games, one of the reasons that I think games are so important is there's a lot of money in them right now, and we'll talk about that during the earnings section. But because there's a lot of money and investment in them, games are now able, instead of to use technology developed by science, they're able to use technologies that are going to start to be used by science, business, and other things. So they're now starting to create things that we'll see in other domains very soon. So I'd like to show you a brief video about how L.A. Noire was made. L.A. Noire is one of the most visually striking games in terms of how it creates humans and human faces. And let me just show you how they have decided to hire not well-known, but B-list Hollywood actors and try to get the best visual performance that they can out of them. So let me just bring up this video. Please let me know if you can't hear it. I believe it should be loud enough.
Product not yet rated.
For a long time we've been able to make buildings that look good. We've been able to make cars that look very real. The level of realism goes up and up and up. With previous kind of technologies that you'd use, like facial motion capture, we didn't really ever feel that we could pull that off. You could never really tell whether someone live or not. With this technology, what you see is what you get.
Always happen to help the LAPD.
Started researching it about 5 years ago.
Back then, only research groups were already doing it, discounted off on 3D mesh generation from multiple cameras.
We thought that there might be some application for what we were doing, and this story is a detective story, so the believability of the actor's performance is key to gameplay.
That's one of the key strengths of our system. We can actually see all the subtle features that animation traditional ones just can't do.
Cole Phelps, traffic. What do we got? It's really acting a scene in 2 parts, the motion capture and then the motion scanning.
The motion capture captures all the body movements and where people look, so it gives you more of the eye lines.
Regulator valve. Good climb.
Then we move over to this studio where an actor will typically go into makeup in the morning and then have their hair done in 1940s hairstyle. Then they come into a room and sit in the seat behind them, and what the rig does is capture a volume around them.
You've got cameras not only around, but also looking upward and downward as well. So any kind of movement is going to cut out some of the information.
And then to look at their lines, and as they show up, they get processed and turned into 3D.
And action. So the guys' names that I've been seeing doing the repairs on the heaters, they're fully licensed and accredited.
We go from 2D videos to 3D meshes
I think you're lying, Grayson. I think some of your men aren't fully licensed.
to compressed versions for the game.
I think some of your men aren't fully licensed. You're desperate to cover your sales.
The level of detail is just so high that they're just like replacing the half.
You're gonna lose your wife and probably end up in the big house.
I hope she was worth it.
Being in the depth analysis room is a process that most people have never experienced. It's such a new technology.
It's a constant close-up is what it is, but it's a close-up from 360 degrees.
There's something pretty special about knowing that you will be recreated, but in another type of form.
I saw myself today.
Blow it off, Cole. These artsy fartsy types always did it with flighty.
It's me.
LAPD, drop the weapon. What, you think I'm some kind of nut job? What proof have you got?
A big theme of this game is dishonesty, and to detect when people are lying. You couldn't have done that in the past.
Why are you lying to me, Barbara?
The better you are at reading people, the more things it will reveal, and the story goes different ways if you do that.
The only way you're going to get rid of me is to give me an answer.
You're out of your depth, detective. You're asking the wrong questions of the wrong people.
Having this realism really helps. You're literally talking to that person and then seeing how they behave by asking questions.
Why did you kill Mrs. Terrelson?
I have no recollection of the people I've killed.
So what if I took a look around that car? You can't be accused of me of nothing.
You've got the wrong guy.
I remember seeing this video when it came out. I had it a little early because one of my friends, well, an acquaintance of mine's husband is in the game and actually in that video. And I was just astounded at the technology. You can see why facial realism at that level really has a huge potential for both education, things like possible lip reading translators, or even just how we communicate using things like Skype and other communication scenarios. Let's talk a little bit about earning. Games as business. Games are big business, and the numbers have recently, within the United States and abroad, come to a point where they just can't be ignored anymore. They're over $25 billion estimated in 2010 for the American market when you include both games, the software, as well as the hardware, so all the microphones, all the controllers, all the systems, all the chairs that people buy that have subwoofers in them and things like that. And about 120,000 US jobs rely on games or the hardware that goes with them. There are two aspects to this that I wanted to address in this talk this evening. One is how to generate business through games, so things, and also how to generate money from games yourself. Two ways businesses generate money through games include in-game advertising. So you're playing and you drive along, and instead of saying, go to the pizza place, it says, go to Pizza Hut, trademark song commercial for Pizza Hut. Or you're driving along, and instead of a billboard being a bland billboard, a company, typically like a soda company or a sportswear company, has paid, and their logo and their actually current logo will appear. So actually one well-known gaming company, and they sell space for a limited time in their games. And so there are certain games where you drive along and the billboard is always a current movie. So it's whatever movie is either just out or just coming out. And the next time you play the game, if that movie has come and gone, if you are connected to the internet, it will download the next movie thing. And what's really weird is the game that I'm referring to that I've played a couple times, it's a driving game, and I can't remember the exact name, or I tell you, if you come back like 6 months later, I figured they would have stopped doing that. No, it's still the most, you're like, Jack Black and Gulliver's Travels. There's no way they predicted that when this game came out 3-4 years ago. So it's very interesting. The second type, which as a gamer myself I find interesting, are games that are designed specifically for the purposes of advertising and marketing. So when you go to a website, you somehow get sucked into playing a little game there. That's called advergaming, and that's a very, very popular market. This particular website, pleasurehunt.mymagnum.com. My Magnum refers to, they're like chocolate ice cream bars, kind of like the Haagen-Dazs ones. They're vanilla ice cream, you dip them in chocolate. And they were very popular for a while. They have a very interesting game. So I tried to download it. It still didn't work quite well on my computer, but feel free to go to that website. It is all ages appropriate. And take a look at it. It's very fun. It's a lady who runs through other websites trying to get chocolates. And it just goes on and on. It's very cute. One of the big rules about advert gaming is that people are learning slowly as more and more companies try to do these games that are also advertisements, is that it has to be more about gaming than advertising. People generally don't like advertising, people generally do like gaming. So if you make a game that the focus is buy our widget, people don't want to buy your widget. People don't want to do things involving learning about buying your widget. They want to play something that's entertaining. And so following rules of games, which we'll talk about in the education section, is really important. The two reasons that companies seem to like them is, one, it can create brand recognition. So as you play the game, you say, oh, Magnum Ice Cream, I hadn't heard of them, huh? The other thing is that you can draw users back to your website, which if you're a company that's keeping up with up-to-date information and stories and pictures, that's what's called stickiness, or attracting people to your website, has a huge benefit and has actual dollar value to companies. Now, how can you make money from games? Writing your own games and selling your own games could be its own whole presentation, but one of the things that you can see literally right now when you go home, or if you go to the computers in the library, are people making money from selling things that they've made in games. How would you do that, you might ask? Well, you can think that if I said, okay, I can make chairs out of wood, and so I will go, you will ask me for a chair, I will go home, I'll buy wood, I'll make a chair out of it, I'll give it to you, you will pay me because you either don't have the skills or the time to make your own chair, right? Same thing is true for games. As they get more complex, there may be something that you can achieve that takes 5 or 6 hours, or perhaps it takes 50 or 60 hours, and some people don't want to have to spend that 50 or 60 hours, so they'll pay someone else to spend that time for them. So if you go onto websites like Craigslist, I got these yesterday off online to try to find ones that are realistic. I think that the second one here is very unrealistic, so please don't take that as a life goal. Level 85 account wouldn't sell for that much. I don't play World of Warcraft, I just know that that's way out there. You also have people who collect gold, which is basically like currency in these, and then they'll sell the currency. If you keep up with modern events, there were recently accusations that prisoners in a certain country were being made to do tasks online to generate gold, so that then not the wardens, but the guards could then sell that gold and make money. Very interesting. I'm telling you, just do a little Google search, you'll find it. And then, of course, certain websites have the ability to sell what are called crafts or crafting items within games. Games, again, get so complex. If you make a chair, let's say, in a game, and there are games where you can make chairs, certain games, the more chairs you make, the better you get at making chairs. So then not only can you make chairs, but you can make chairs faster and better than anyone else who makes chairs. Kind of like the longer you practice an instrument, theoretically, the better you get at it. And so then it may become advantageous to you to develop this skill and sell things. So people make money selling virtual property all the time. And actually, one of the things that Blizzard, the company that makes World of Warcraft and also the StarCraft series and the Diablo series, has announced for Diablo 3, which I thought was coming out at Christmas. I haven't been watching that date. There are certain games I just don't play because my life would disappear into them, and Diablo 3 is one of them. World of Warcraft is another. But Diablo 3 is going to give the ability to create virtual items, sell them, and then convert that back into real currency. It's not going to be a lot, and I don't know, it'll be gamed, like people will figure out how to game the system and make a lot of money in the short term, but I think it's a very interesting development for such a large company to do that. Finally, because I don't want to take too long, and I have quite a few interesting things to say, what with my field being education, let's talk about games as education. The scholar McGonagall, who is one of the first people to sort of make an appearance in the mainstream press related to talking about games, came out with a book this year called Reality is Broken. And from what I gather, the main premise of the book, I want to read it a few more times before I'm 100% sure of being 100% accurate on describing what she would say. I don't want to put words into her mouth, but is that people are spending hundreds of millions of hours a year gaming rather than doing something else. So why don't we either change games to make that have more of a benefit to society, or why don't we take things that we as society deem beneficial and make them more like games so people do those instead? And that's the gist of her premise. One of the things that she does early on in the book is she says, here are 4 defining characteristics of games, because we could debate, is Pong a game by today's standards? Is this a game? What's a game? What isn't? She says that games have to have goals or specific outcomes. They have to have limitations or rules. You have to restrict how people can achieve these particular goals. You have to provide feedback or progress. And then finally, participation has to be voluntary. People can't be told in prison that they have to farm gold. That's not a game anymore. I don't even know what that, imprisonment? I don't know. And so I can see how these 4 things directly relate to how we have regular education both in public school and universities. We have learning outcomes both at the program level, so the degree level, or in the case of public schools at the grade level, the state, federal outcomes. You have course outcomes, you have lesson plan objectives. We limit how goals can be accomplished. We say the way that you get points in this course is we give you assignments, you take these tests, you give these presentations, you take these exams. As professors, we provide feedback on progress. Teachers provide feedback, whether they be grades or whether it's written or whether it's, good job. And then finally, at least at the university level, students voluntarily register. So I don't know if public school can officially be considered a game. I'm not sure how good the truancy system is here in Wisconsin. I know that where I went to school in Canada, it wasn't so voluntary. If you were under 16, you went to school and you liked it. But certainly at the university level, we like to think that it's voluntary. So I like to think of university as a game. I don't know if that's wrong, and probably shouldn't say it in front of the dean of the school, but I will continue on and hope I'm employed tomorrow. Where can we use games and use those 4 criteria and use what used to be called virtual reality to our best effort? One is in creating the expensive. Things that are very, very expensive to create, or scenarios that are impossible to create, we can create using virtual worlds, and the technology is slowly getting there. If you want to look at disaster simulation, this was an idea that I was turned on to by a lady who used to run a research group at Stanford. She's since branched off and done her own company. But the idea of, okay, we want to, here at St. Michael's Hospital, run a drill that there's been a chemical spill. We have to evacuate the whole first floor. You can't evacuate the whole first floor at St. Mike's. When is that going to happen? Right, we have to evacuate the ICU. I don't think the patients in the ICU are going to want to do that, but it may be a valuable exercise, because if it does happen, you will need to evacuate. So a simulation is a way to do it, that you can not only do it once, but you can keep doing it. As long as you have energy for the computer, you can keep doing it. So to give you a brief idea of what this can look like, let me move to the section where it's relevant. This is a company that this is what they specialize in. I don't think that they would call it games. I think they would call it simulation. But to give you an idea of how, in this particular scenario, it's 4 groups of people coordinating based on a simulated, so no one was actually harmed in making this except for possibly the programmers being overtired. A jet engine crash, or an airplane, crash. And there's nothing gory, I assure you. This is the way the training room's laid out. You have law enforcement in one small cubicle. They cannot see or speak with the EMS people, who cannot see or speak with fire, who can't see or speak airport operations. Then you have a facilitator, who sort of helps coordinate everything. And then the incident commander, who's in charge of the entire event. And this is quite a long video, but I'll show you the first few minutes.
We have an alert 3. There is a Boeing 757 down at the end of runway 4 left. We have an initial report of over 100 passengers. No other information at this time. Commander Elliott, prior report, take 757 down on runway 4 left. I say again, prior report, take 757 down